Welcome, everybody, back to a brand new episode of the Translation Plan, your go to podcast for transgender history. As always, I'm your host, Mark, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you all here today on the final day of 2024. Yes, I know I didn't drop this episode on Sunday, but the reason why is because I wanted to actually do this on the final day of the new year, for the new year, I'm sorry. So today, this episode is not your typical episode. I don't have a particular piece of history I will be sharing for this episode. This is more of a episode to talk about our 2024 wrap, talk about the year of growth and gratitude that I would like to actually share with you all. And before I get into that, I kind of want to break this up to three different parts, really. The first one being the origin story about the translation plan, how it became what it is. If you never listened to the very first episode, so if like you just found out about us last week, or kind of jump right into season 7, I want to kind of give a little bit more information about that. Um, how our podcast is for the year, and then of course what we plan to do for the year 2025. As I mentioned, before I get into it, as I mentioned in my last, I think 2 episodes, my audio is not the usual high quality audio that you normally get from the podcast because I still have yet to visit my other place in Denver. So all my equipment is still there. I don't go back until mid January. So I'm gonna try my best to get some decent-ish quality for the podcast, at least for the new year. I don't want to give you all some janky, low quality audio for the brand new episodes, which will also be starting season 8 for the new year as well. So I got my ways that I can figure it out. But I just wanted to really get this episode off as quickly as possible. I didn't want to have you all wait to kind of hear what I had to say. So with that, disregard the audio if you can. I'm gonna try my best to fix it in post. But I know it's not going to be the best because I'm trying out another mic that's not the same one that I used last week. So thank you so much for your understanding, I would say. So for those who are new here, if you never heard about the origin story of how the transistor plan became a thing, I kind of want to talk about that. When I first started the transistor plan, it was back in the year of 2020. This is during the COVID year when I had an idea, and this idea was something that came from personal experience. I came out as trans in the late 2018, 2019 time frame. And I remember trying to figure out ways that I can learn more about my identity. And not just for what I wanted myself to be, but also what others who are like me went through as well. And using that to be able to navigate my life in the way that I feel best fits. And I was finishing up my final year in college around this time when the idea came about. And I remember kind of just looking up trans history, just trying to find resources that just provide us a little bit more about those who were here before us, how long has this been around, how much does the history go back to, and there were pros and cons to doing that, right? The pro being able to realize that the digital age has gotten so advanced and evolved to the point where we can just do a simple Google search to look stuff up like this. Some stuff is free, some stuff is easily accessible, but very broad and not enough information that I prefer to be able to learn about something. The con of this is a lot of things are backed by paywalls or educational restrictions. So, for example, if you're not a college student or a professor or a faculty member at a university or college, a lot of these information of additional insights into history, you can't have access to. It's not general public accessible. Um, So there are some pros and cons to that, which made my researching for trans history a little bit difficult, right? And depending on where you're looking, we also have the con of limited amount of information as it relates to the trans community, right? Um, so there are a couple of things that played a factor. The other one is I'm an individual who has a severe case of ADHD. So for me, I try to find ways for me to help me retain information the best way possible. And I'm a very big audiobook guy. I'm a very big podcast guy. I'm a very visual and auditorial learner. So I had to figure out ways where I can learn what I'm reading in the best way possible. So that's kind of how the podcast piece came into play. And I was kind of just like, hey, I know that there are people in this world who have limited access to resources where they can learn more about history, especially trans history, of course, right? So that's the other piece of the factor on like, hey, like let me create a podcast that's open to the general public, no restrictions, no paywall behind it, that people can access at any time, subscribe, and just listen to episodes every week. And that's how the plan and the idea came about for the Trans Lesson Plan podcast. Like I said, I wanted to create a space where we could explore and celebrate trans history and not just the well known stories that we mostly know of, but the hidden gems as well, the everyday heroes and the moments that actually shape our community. But here's the thing, and I want to be completely honest with you all because that's what I love to do anyway. I wasn't ready then. So as I mentioned, I think in maybe 5 episodes ago, is that I will be redoing season one's episodes because I was extremely new to this. Right, I was younger. I was still learning so much about myself and our history, and the weight of being able to create something so important was extremely overwhelming. Um, I wasn't good at researching. I wasn't good at being as analytical. I wasn't making sure that I was uh, being more prepared for episodes and writing the content out, writing the scripts. And that took a toll on me. And I didn't want to put out a product, especially that early, and it be that terrible. Um, so I had to take a pause. I put it on pause and I took the time to grow, to learn, and really understand what this project needed to be. So fast forward to 2023, I was like, hey, although my schedule is still as chaotic as it is, I dedicated myself for the year 2024 to make an episode a week, if possible. As you all know, I had to have some gaps in here for a lot of different things, but try to be as consistent as I possibly can to release an episode every Sunday for the year. I felt more grounded, more knowledgeable, and most importantly, ready to give project, I'm sorry, the dedication that it deserved. Although I will note I might have slipped up a couple of times. So the trans lesson plan came from my belief that our history um, shouldn't just be preserved, right? It should be taught, it should be shared, it should be celebrated. Um, so I wanted to make sure that I continued and gave this project that. And that's exactly what I did, right? So being able to think about our history and looking back now, I'm grateful for the initial pause that I had to take in order for this project to be as successful for this year to get back into it. Taking those years off for growth and for learning helped shape this podcast into what it is today. Learning from those who I am close to, whether that's professors, activists, educators, researchers, friends and family, projects that I worked on, really gave up this platform exactly what it needed. A platform that not only educates, but builds connections and community, which is what you all are. So, with that, I want to talk about the year 2024. As I mentioned, right, when I revived this podcast back in 23, I just didn't know what to expect. I was kind of going in blind, but you all have blown me away. This year, we've welcomed over 2,500 new listeners or subscribers to the community here. And that's a 375% increase from last year, which is absolutely mind boggling for me. When I looked at the wrapped, and this is just for Spotify because Apple Apple don't let me check like the analytics. But I think I think my RSS combines these also. It actually might be both. I should have checked that beforehand. But a 375% increase from last year, which is absolutely insane. Uh and it makes my heart absolutely full. Is that 93% of you have discovered it for the very first time this year. So I want to thank all of the new listeners who decided to give this podcast a try, subscribe to it, listen to it, and really put its love in the back of it and continue to support it, of course. Today, I actually got another milestone notification on my phone that I was very shocked by, and it's that we've crossed 25,000 listens this year alone, and each episode um, reaches about 850 of you, beautiful people, on the very first listen. So that's our average listens per episode. So thank you all so much. Your engagement, your comments, your messages, they've meant the world to me. And on top of that, we have our 5-star ratings on Spotify and 4 stars on Apple Podcasts. Now, the Apple Podcast is a little skewed because we have bigots that decide to leave negative reviews on the podcast because of hatred and other things that don't really matter. I don't know how they find the podcast and decide that, hey, I'm not going to listen. I'm just going to leave a negative reply because I don't think that trans people should exist. Like, I don't understand it. But I appreciate you all who continue to write positive comments for the podcast to let people know that this is a safe space that they can come and they can learn. And that's all of you. So to talk about 2025, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we'll be starting season 8 of the podcast for the new year. And we're just getting started, right? I am thrilled to announce that we will really be expanding in some exciting ways. One of those is being that I am in the thought process and really the mind mapping phase of collaborative episodes, really working with additional LGBTQ plus historians, activists. I want to start a interactive session, some type of live stream or web series on my YouTube channel, um, and creating educational resources to actually complement our episodes as well. So I want to put all of that together. That's really probably the middle tier range of where I want to have for 2025. But one of my biggest focuses for the new year will be building our social media presence, which is the most important thing because I know that you all want to be able to share out the podcast in a lot of ways. And I know that social media is the most important and biggest thing on this earth right now. So I want to build our social media presence. I am in the process of finding a manager for that so that I don't have to do the hard work because I already do a lot of hard work outside of this. So this is why I don't have the time for the social media piece of this. And then the Patreon, which is actually free right now for everyone to join. If you want to join the Patreon, that's just providing me with more ways to connect with you all between episodes. So I want to have exclusive content on there, behind the scenes looks at the research process, and some early access to episodes, vlogs, et cetera, all that good stuff. So join the Patreon now while it's free, um, because I want you all to, like I said, just have that exclusive content. It won't be an expensive thing as well, just like as a heads up, like when it does become paid, um, it'll be literally no more than like $5. So I want to make it reasonable and affordable for everyone to purchase when that time comes. But right now, you can't sign up for free with that, and that will include a Discord and all that good stuff. And, I have merch that's also being designed and reconstructed so that you all can buy merch to support the podcast while you're out. I got a lot of things, y'all. A lot of things for the new year. You already inspired me to do more with this because I can tell that you all love what I have done with it. So I want to make sure that I give my gratitude in return. So thank you all so much. And prepare obviously for 2025. Um, so before I wrap, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you to each and every single one of you who has listened to the podcast. Thank you for listening, for sharing, for engaging. and for being a part of this community. Whether you've been here since day one or you joined us last week, I want you to know that you are making a difference in helping share and preserve trans history. So, with that, keep an eye on our social media for some exciting announcements coming soon. You can follow the podcast at Trans Lesson Plan on Twitter and Instagram. I am considering making one for TikTok, but it all depends on if the United States decides to block that. So, TBD for TikTok. And don't forget to check out our Patreon page. I will link it in the episode description as well, so that you all can easy access. Like I said, get in there before it becomes the $5 a month. Support the show and obviously get some awesome perks from that as well. If you'd like to follow me, the host, you can follow me at mariiiwrld. That's MAR3ISWRLD on Instagram, Twitter, and that is also my TikTok at the moment. Like I said, depending on how that goes with the block in the band. Um, but yes, keep an eye out for all that. I have already been planning like social media content at least for the year January, so we should have consistent content for that year that I put together while I was on vacation, and then after that I'll have a manager coming in to handle the rest. But like I said, thank you all so much for giving me your time this year, for continuing to support the podcast. And until next time, I want to thank you all for coming out, reminding you to close out that our history matters, our stories matter. And if you are someone who identifies as trans, I want you to know that you matter as well. Um, I would like to rest in peace a very prominent um, acquaintance of mine, Apollo Moon, also known as by his actual name of Forrest, who unfortunately we lost this year, and also to spread love to all of our trans family who we have also lost throughout the 2024 year as well. Each and every one of their stories should be mentioned in each and every way possible that we can. So just make sure that you spread some love to give out the new year. Please be safe tonight as well. I don't know where you are, but crazy things always happen on New Year. So I want you all to please be safe. Uh, Make sure that you got your Ubers, your Lyfts, or stay indoors, which is probably what I'm going to be doing because Atlanta is going to be a little too chaotic for my liking. So be safe, enjoy your new year, and I will see you all in 2025. Peace.